once a year. And this year it's in Orlando, Florida. Allblacknationalconvention.com is where you can go to find out more about the convention and the whole agenda and everything else. Uh, let's see. Hebrew Sinclair says, what would you advise when you want to create multiple businesses and income streams? Is it best to concentrate on the first or multiply your efforts? I'm a believer that if you know, I guess if you can go to the bank and borrow, $1 million, maybe you could do more than one thing at one time. If you can't, like if you can't go and get an endless supply of capital and an endless supply of resources, it might be better to focus on one thing at a time. Because what happens a lot of times is that if you put all your energy into that first business and it does well, or at least makes cash flow, you can then use that cash flow to fund your other businesses. So in a way, it's like back in the day, remember like 150 years ago, people would have kids like so they can have like workers on their farm, right? So your goal is to have people would have lots and lots of kids. Like I didn't understand that. Like if you're dirt poor in Kansas or something, like why would you have 14 kids, right? um but they would do that because the more kids you had, the more workers you had. It was children were an asset. They were human capital, right? So if you think about it, right? So let's say that me and Ma Kettle want to have as many children as possible so we can have as many workers on the farm as we can. So, does it make sense for us to have? I mean, we could do it this way. We could have a 1 year old, then a 2 year old, then a 3 year old, then a 4 year old, then a 5 year old, then a 6 year old, then a 7 year old, right? Maybe we'll even have twins along the way. Would that make sense? Or maybe it might be better to have one child, and then maybe when that child's three, have another one, and then maybe wait 3 more years and have another one, right? And then let those kids get older. So and then by the time that fourth kid comes along, the one of the older kids can help babysit the other kid, right? While we're out in the farm, the babysitters are the kids are going to take over for babysitting to help us raise the other kids, basically. You see what I mean? So it's not a perfect analogy, but you get the point. Like, so your companies are like those kids where if you have all your kids at once, it's going to just drain all your resources. So you got three businesses, four businesses, and you're spreading yourself thin amongst all the businesses. So none of them are getting that critical mass of support that you need to get to the next level and get over the hump. It's very hard to get over the hump if you're spread thin. But if you have that one business that you're super passionate about and you're pouring everything into that business, you have a greater likelihood of finding that success that you need where things pop. I know a lot of business owners, a lot of people. There are people in the Black Business School right now who literally are clearing $100,000, $200,000 a month in revenue from their business. These are people that used to work regular jobs and all this stuff, and it's because they had that one thing that they did and it clicked. Maybe they took a class. Alicia's friend does. She sells CMOS, and she took our entrepreneurship class, which is Black Money 103, blackmoney103.com if you want to take a look. And she went through Black Money 103, which is part of our Black Money sequence. We have 101 through 106. And she took Black Money 103. And what she learned was that she actually had a great business idea that she didn't realize it could be turned into money. She would make CMOS, and she would, people would want her CMOS. She would give it away, and people like wanted it at work or whatever. And so she created the CMOS business where she started making the CMOS, and she started marketing it just to her Facebook friends. And her Facebook friends gave her that initial spark financially, where she was able to make a quick $3,000-$4,000 and reinvest in more CMOS, and then slowly but surely expand through word of mouth and everything else. And then it got to the point within less than like 6 months to a year where her husband was able to quit his job. Her son quit his job so that they could sit in the kitchen and make CMOS all day because they had so many orders coming in that they couldn't keep up with it. So they found that spark. And it came from the fact that she was just focused on the CMOS thing. And that makes it easier. If you're focused on one thing, it makes it easier for branding. It also makes it easier to hit a critical mass of cash flow generation so that then later on, once you're generating cash flow from, say, CMOS, you can take some of that cash and put it into something else, right? But if you're doing all that early, then it's very difficult because you don't have what you need in order to run all those companies. All right, so let's see here. Brad Smith, how do you feel about purchasing U.S. bonds in any market? I think bond purchases are fine. Bonds are considered to be lower risk than stocks. I don't think it's necessarily a terrible thing. I don't buy a lot of bonds, but bonds go up and down in price just like stocks do, just not as dramatically. And that's when they talk about the 10-year yield going up. What they're really saying is that bond prices have gone down. When bond prices go down, yields go up. I can explain that in detail later if you want to, but basically, bonds are something that people might buy typically for speculative reasons, right? A lot of bonds have coupon payments and they'll pay you interest. But a lot of people buy bonds, I believe, because they're speculating that the price might go up and they can just make capital gains on the price change in the bond as opposed to waiting on the interest payments and all that stuff. All right, so Furman, that's you got the last question. Doc, what are your thoughts on the accuracy of Kawasaki's prognostication that a worldwide economic crash will happen in October or the near future? Let me tell you about that, Furman. For the last 120 years, there have always been people who've been able to make millions of dollars writing books predicting the end of the world. That's you can go back every year. Somebody's saying this is it. This is when the global economic crash is going to happen. Just like those people say every year, Jesus is coming. You better, or you're going to kill yourself because the end of the world is near. Right? These entire cults that commit mass suicide because they think the world's coming to an end because Venus is aligned with Saturn or whatever. Right? And to this point, that hasn't happened, right? To this point, all those books predicting the end of the world, the global economic collapse, have been wrong. And the other thing that is interesting is that sometimes you see people getting too trapped in the moment, where when they do see a natural economic decline, recessions happen all the time. They say, see, I told you it was all come right. When COVID started, when the pandemic started, there were people who were like, see, the end is near. This proves that the end is near. No, it proves that the world is going through another crisis. We'll probably make it through this one like we have all the other ones, and then life will go on like normal. So I would not put too much stock in, like it's if you're sitting around waiting for the end of the world to happen, there's a good chance you'll be waiting a long time. And a lot of people will sit on the sidelines. They won't invest. They don't make any moves because they're waiting for the whole global economic system to collapse. Well, there are people who've been waiting for that for 60 years, and it hasn't happened. 100 years, it hasn't happened. Waiting their whole life, and it hasn't happened. So I don't know if that's where the business I would be in now. If he's predicting that there could be like some sort of massive global recession or some sort of economic shock or something that can happen that we've never seen before, that is entirely possible, and I would say probable, because the economic system is shifting, it's changing, and when you have that much change, you're going to have some new dynamics occur that we've never dealt with before. When the Great Depression happened in 1929, there were people who thought that meant the end of the global economic system, and it looked like it for a while. The Great Depression lasted for years, right? But it wasn't the end of anything. It was an era. That's all it was an era. Like if somebody were to tell you, well, the global economic system ended in 1929. The world came to an end in 1929. You'd be like, what are you talking about? I was born in 1985. Like no, the world kept spinning and it just adjusted, right? So don't get caught up in that, in my view. Like I would just, fear does sell. That's why Facebook is in trouble, because they think Facebook was actually selling fear. Like they know that anxiety and anger drives engagement, and that is what they use. They use those algorithms to get people riled up and fired up. Next thing you know, you got, a million angry Trump supporters that are storming the Capitol. You got a million people out in the streets protesting for Black Lives Matter and everything else. And then the politicians, I believe politicians and media also push that because they were trying to win an election, right? That's what they do. Whenever there's an election year, I guarantee it, by the 2024 election, I promise you, mark my words. I want you to remember this. Stick a pin in it. The 2024 election, there will be some sort of massive economic political crisis. There will be something that will have people out in the streets or whatever. I believe a lot of this is orchestrated. Because again, think about it. Since the election, you haven't heard anything from the Black Lives Matter stuff. You haven't heard anything, about riots in the streets and all this stuff. And that it's because there's no reason to do it now, right? And you see this in other examples. This is actually a marketing strategy, because a lot of things are marketing. Even elections are really about marketing, except instead of getting money, you're getting votes, but you're still selling a product. The product happens to be the politician. It might be the idea, and you market the idea to get people to buy it. And instead of giving you money, they give you votes, right? So it's the same. It's just like business. But pay attention. Even Oprah. Does anybody remember the time where Oprah had that little controversy, that manufactured controversy, where she was in Europe and she said that this white lady told her that she couldn't afford the purse when she went into the store. She was in a store in Sweden or something and was buying and was looking at this $1,000 purse, and the lady insinuated that she couldn't afford it because she was black. And then Oprah goes and tells the story like the nerve of her. She said that I can't afford the. She insinuated I couldn't afford the purse because I was black, and a lot of people got riled up, because it triggered their insecurity. Like how dare you tell me that I can't buy a purse because I'm black? I'm gonna go give you money. I'm gonna give you all my money just to prove to you that I can afford it, right? Like Whitley Gilbert in that episode in A Different World when she went through that. Remember that, right? And Oprah got everybody triggered and excited and all this other stuff. And then but if you go back and look at that, pay attention. At that time, she was releasing a new movie or book, or it was something. She was launching something. So that whole emotional triggering was driven by the fact that she had something she needed to sell, right? So don't get too caught up in that stuff. Fear does sell, and that's why they sell these doomsday end of the world books and all this other stuff. Just do what you got to do. Take care of your family, make your investments, adjust. If you adjust, chances are 99 times out of 100, everything's going to be okay. All right. So I'm going to get out of here, guys. It was great to see you. Great to talk to you. AllBlackNationalConvention.com. I hope you guys will come to the convention. It's really going to be fun. I guarantee you will walk out transformed. Your children will be transformed. We have a whole curriculum for kids, so your kids will know economics. We have experts that can teach your children that will be there. We have experts that can talk to you about crypto and stocks and relationships and politics and just it's great. I'm really excited about it. So and even my mama gonna be there. So y'all get to meet my mama. All right. So take care, everybody. Love you, and I will see you soon. So I guess I'll check with you guys next week. If you want to see the recording of everything we did today and every other class, log in at theblackstockmarketprogram.com, theblackstockmarketprogram.com. Also, later on today, I'm going to list the 6 stocks I'm buying for this week. So just log in at theblackstockmarketprogram.com and you can take a look at the stocks that I'm buying for this week. All right. So have a good day, everybody. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.